Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
When Hoja-san and I were talking about what I should talk about, it kind of came to be that I should maybe talk a little bit about the prehistory of Zen in Bloomington before Sanshinji. I was rather intimately involved with the early groups, the early days. We started, actually it started before me. I became involved maybe a couple of years after they started sitting at the UU Church. As I understand it, about 1990, which was around the same time that I started to really commit to practice, they started sitting a woman named Sue Rhodes, who was a philosophy professor here at IU, advertised in the UU paper and in the local newspaper, and invited people to come sit with her. At first, nobody showed up. She was by herself, and then one person, Russ Skiba, a friend of mine, showed up, and Russ began to kind of take over and find other ways of inviting people. I showed up in spring of '92. I saw the advertisement in the newspaper, and I had avoided such things before. I thought they were kooks and wingnuts, and I probably would enjoy myself. Even though they were kooks and wingnuts, I fit right in. So we sat as kind of a small group for a while, and there were times when we would have as many as 15 or 20 people. And over the years, we would invite people to come and talk. I think the first priest that we actually had come talk, and this was before she received transmission, was a woman who eventually became my teacher for a while. And that would be Myoyu Anderson, and she is now up in Wisconsin. And I'm still in contact with her occasionally. But I studied with her for about 16 or 17 years. And maybe a few years after Myoyu Roshi showed up, we invited Taiken Yokoyama, who at that time was Hoja-san's assistant, or Jisha. And Taiken came and did a zazenkai and a talk, and was a thoroughly enjoyable fellow. And I don't know how it happened or how it transpired, but eventually we invited you with Taiken. We held I think it was a 2 or 3 day session out at Waycross, which is Episcopalian ministry out in Brown County. A really beautiful, delightful place. That drew people from a little bit further away. We had folks from Indianapolis and West Lafayette and other places come, and Hoja-san was giving talks, and I think that was our first real way of meeting Hoja-san. And over time, sitting and inviting Hoja-san and Myoyu, we started to do 3 days and 7-day sittings out at Waycross and other places. In the meantime, we kept kind of a daily practice going on at the UU Church, which was a wonderful thing until they decided to do some construction on the church. And since I think we did it once or twice a week, usually around noon, so there'd be a lot of noise going on. I think it was probably about 1997 when, sitting at the UU Church, the jackhammers were going. We thought, we've got to do something else. We've got to go somewhere else. And so in 1997, we found houses, St. Mark's Church. There were, the United, the University United Ministries. We sat there. We sat at the Bryan Room. It was a kind of a busy time, and we never knew exactly where we were going to be. And then, as we were getting settled into the St. Mark's Methodist Church, they decided to, I think it was right before Easter, probably in 97, they were having a dress rehearsal for Handel's Messiah. Full chorus, full orchestra, and we got to sit during that was going on. So, in one way, it was inspiring. And other times at the UU Church, there'd be a soccer match going on, and we could hear the speakers. And every time somebody made a goal, and we all felt like raising our fist. So that's kind of how it happened here in Bloomington, and I was glad to be part of it. And I was part, I just want to say that a friend of the early Sangha, Bob Meadows, had found the piece of property with the idea of inviting Hoja-san here. And we spent several weekends just clearing trash and weeds and kind of preparing the place until it just started to pull together. And I think there were some fits and starts around you going other places. Eventually it was kind of decided, since we had a place, and in fact, I guess one of the things I forgot to talk about, I'm going to be jumping around just a little bit here, what came out of all the places that we were sitting, and all the problems with sitting in all the different places, and we eventually had to decide that we needed our own place. And we found a place in the back of one of the office buildings downtown, in behind where the Subway sandwich station used to be. Subway sandwich shop used to be. We called it the Subway Zindo. We got to smell the bread and all the food cooking while we were sitting. The bathrooms were down the hall from us, and there were a row of windows that we had covered up, but people would go marching by, and some of them would tap on the windows while we were sitting. They had no idea we were there. So it was another challenge, but we were glad to have the space. We had that from about 1998 until maybe 2004. And it seemed to be kind of in the cards that as soon as Sanshin was up and running, our place, we had to give it up. The fellow who owned the building wanted to have it for office space. And so we were immediately absorbed within the Sanshin community. I just want to say personally, it's been a very interesting journey to watch how all this has come about and how it's still coming about. With our long board meeting this weekend, we began to talk about how things need to progress. And I am very hopeful that we're going to keep growing, and it's all very interesting to me. I don't know how to go on much farther with this. I think maybe I'll just consider this the end and try and create a segue for Hoja-san to come up and give his talk. So, thank you all. Thank you all for being here.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for coming this morning. Only one word I want to say this morning. is gratitude. I really like to express my deepest gratitude to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And that's all I have to say today. But it might be too short, so I need to talk a little more. Well, me and my family arrived in Bloomington today, 10 years ago, June 22nd. So we left Minneapolis on 21st, and some people who used to practice with me came to help us, loading the truck. And at that time, on the street, we had a birthday party for me. There was a photo of that party. That's why I really remember when we moved. When we moved, the building of Sanshin-Zen-Community is not yet ready to leave. So we stayed at the next door owned by Bob Meadows. As Michael said, Bob Meadows is really a driving force which enabled Sanshin being here. He found the property and he made design of the buildings, and actually he built as a contractor. So I really would like to say thank you for Bob Meadows. Bob, could you stand up? He also served as a board member for a while. Then we continued to building, and we started to live at that building in August, and we started to practice in the Zendo, current Zendo, in the September. And we had the Zendo opening ceremony on the first Saturday of September 2003. We had about 20 people, mainly from the Zen Center of Bloomington. And the next day, on Sunday, this place had a dedication ceremony, and His Holiness Dalai Lama was here, and they had 5,000 people. I really like this difference between 20 and 5,000. But since then, we have been a good connection and exchange, and I was invited several times to give a talk here, and I also been here to listen to some Tibetan teachers' teachings, and I really appreciate their generosity to allow this space today. So I'd like to thank you for TMBCC. Thank you very much. Then we started to practice in Bloomington. Many people came to practice with me. Some of them became my disciples. Now I have about 20 disciples. So without those priests or dedicated practitioners, Sanshin cannot stay. So I really appreciate not only the priests, but all people who came from far away to practice with me, and some of them are, of course, living in Bloomington. And also, in order to establish this, even though Sanshin is still small, to establish this place, we had a lot of donation. And when we were working to raise fund to establish Sanshinji, I lived in San Francisco at the San Francisco Zen Center, and San Francisco Zen Center kindly allow us to use their mailing list for fundraising. And they had 6,000 people in their mailing list, but we couldn't afford to mail 600. So we only used the mailing list in Bay Area and state of Indiana. And the person who taking care of the mailing list told me that the number of the people in their mailing list out of 6,000 is 16. I was very glad. I found, Indiana is really a frontier. And my teacher always encouraged us to be a pioneer. That, I thought too many Zen centers already there in California. So I'm glad to come to this new place, at least for Soto Zen tradition. And after 10 years, we have so many people, and on Sundays, we have 15 to 20 people come to sit and listen to Dharma talk. So I really appreciate San Francisco Zen Center, their kindness, and also many people in Japan and also many people in this country made a donation to make it possible to purchase the property and build the buildings. Without their generosity, we cannot be here. So I really appreciate and want to say thank you to all those donors. And the donation still continues. Without that support, we cannot continue to practice. Today, this is the 10th anniversary of Sanshinji, but this is also a 20th anniversary. This year, we will have a 20th anniversary of my family came from Japan to Minneapolis. We came in 1993, so 20 years ago, I think in July. My daughter was 5 years old, and my son was 2. Since then, my family living in this country, so I really appreciate my children's patience. I'm not such a good father, and also this year in August, we'll have 30th anniversary of Yuko and my marriage. So I have many anniversaries. Without my family's support, I cannot really practice. So I really appreciate my family's patience and help and support to my activity, and also, to make this gathering happen. Yuko and Masaki worked hard, so I appreciate my family's support. And finally, I'd like to introduce this book, this special book made for this anniversary. This is a collection of my teacher, Uchiyama Kosho Roshi's poems on life and death. He wrote these poems when he was about 70 years old, and he thought, and we also thought, he was dying. He was physically very weak person. He lived with TB for 50 years since he was in his 20s. So he was physically very weak person. And around he was 70, he was very sick. So we expect he was dying. And he wrote these poems mainly for himself, about his way of facing his own life and death. And yet, fortunately, he lived more than 15 years after that. He died when he was 86. So he lived very long with such a weak physical body. But I'm getting closer to the age he wrote these poems, and facing my own life and death become my koan, or my practice. That's why I asked Michael to print this collection of poems, and Jim Canary made this wonderful book. He is a really famous, bookmaker, worldly famous bookmaker. So we made this 200 copies. So if you are interested in, please read these poems. For all living beings, without any exception, life and death is really important matter. Actually, Dogen Zenji said, to clarify the matter of life and death is one single great matter for all Buddhists. So our practice is simply to face life and death and live. Anyway, so I really appreciate Jim Canary's wonderful work, and also my teacher's teaching. Without his teaching and example, I cannot be a priest. I cannot be a Dogen Zen practitioner. So I really want to say thank you to my teacher. And finally, I'd like to say thank you to our main speaker, Issho Fujita. I lived in this country from 1975 to 81, and when I went back to Japan, the next winter, my elder Dharma brother, who took over Antaiji from Uchiyama Roshi, invited me to Antaiji during winter to give lectures in English to 6 Italian people. And during one session, he came to sit. I think that was his first session at Antaiji, and he was a graduate student at Tokyo University. And somehow he quit the school and became a monk. And shortly after that session, and I married in 1983, I think. That fine, it makes 30th anniversary. 3 weeks after our wedding, we didn't have wedding actually. Yuko went to Antaiji and stayed there for one year. And mainly she learned how to sew rakusu and okesa from Watanabe Roshi's wife. So Yuko and Issho practiced together for 1 year at Antaiji. So from that, time, for more than 30 years, Issho has been very close friends for all my family. And when I wanted to quit the job for the International Center, I was asked to find a successor. Otherwise, I could not stay in Bloomington. I kept traveling. And I asked him to take over that job. And I'm sorry, he said yes. So he is a kind of a victim of Sanshinji. And now he is, I think, one of the busiest Zen teacher in the world, at least Soto Zen teacher. Within his very busy schedule, he, kindly came to Bloomington and gave his talk today. So I really want to say thank you to him. And I'd like to ask him to come and give a talk. Thank you very much.
マイクはいらない？マイ
クは
はい。 I prepared the PowerPoint. Even though I'm very immature how to handle this powerful tool. Is there any specialist for this?
I'm not a specialist, but I have an idea.
Yeah, we had a test trial yesterday. It's worked well. Okay. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I should apologize my hoarseness of my voice because I'm so busy in speaking here and there. Damage my throat. No, it's not. It's loud. No. I'm just aging. So can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Do you have a mic for you?
Huh? Mike? My name is Issho Fujita. I'm working for Soto Zen Buddhism International Center located in San Francisco. Because he asked me to do so. Okay, today's my topic. My talk's topic is this: Buddha's revolutionary sitting, what happened under the Bodhi tree. Do you think it sounds interesting? Yes. That's why you're here, right? Yes. I try to do my best to satisfy your expectation. But before I jump into this topic, I'd like to have some time to have an ice break. You know, ice break? Ice means, in this case, tension or strain between people, among people, and inside ourselves. Some tension inside myself or tension between the people. So, ice break. There are many different ways of ice break. I learned this term in America. I attended many workshops, Bodhi workshop, some psychotherapy type of workshop, Zen workshop. And I learned about this. You know, before they start the main menu, they have time for ice break. And it was very fun. And I thought it's very useful and it's work. So, since then, every time I have a chance to have this kind of public talk, lecture, I'm having a time. I start from the ice break, even in Japan. It's look very strange to many Japanese people. Ice break? Ice break? What is that? You know? So I want to do it. So first, let's sing a song together. Happy birthday to Shohaku. Unfortunately, I'm tone deaf. I have this voice, so I cannot lead you. But let's sing a song. Okay.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Hosshin. Happy
Thank you. You are very good. And I want to say happy birthday to you too. Every morning we are born as a new person. Right? Happy birthday to you. Okay. Okay. One more ice break among the people is shake hand, say hi to the people next to you. Sorry for the short time for ice break. I noticed somebody tried to hug to each other, so that's too much for them. So I stopped it. Okay, next ice break within ourselves. Right? Some people came very far away, even from another country or something like that. So let's do some ice break exercise, which I usually use some physical exercise to relaxing our body together with mind. So I show you how to do. It's easy. Relax your neck and head. Don't do, just watch me. Because unless you do this in a proper way, you just more tense up. Right? How to do it is very important. So let me explain. Relax. Let the gravity work for me. Just relax. So what you should do is just be aware of the sensations, your head, heaviness of your head, and then the sensation, the muscle around here is being pulled by the heaviness, weight of the head. Okay, don't do anything yet, right? And then breathe in. You feel like your body is kind of expanding. So use this expanding sensations to roll, not move, roll over, roll your head like a bowling ball on a tray. This is tray. Breathing in. Very slowly, be aware of the interesting, sensation. Feel this sensation in a very fresh way. Breathe in. This is the end of in-breath. Then out of breath, let the gravity work. And then breathe in. So let your breath, in-breath, out-breath, move your head, not this. You see the difference, right? This, I did it. Breath did it. Okay. So this difference is directly connected with what I'm going to say under the title of Buddha's revolutionary sitting. Buddha sit this way. That's my point. Right? So let's try. Okay? So breathe out. So let the gravity work. Pull down your head. It's very heavy. I think heavier than the big watermelon. Okay? Okay, next your in-breath. Feel the in-breath. Expand your trunk, then neck and head. And use that sensation as a trigger for rolling your head over your shoulders. At the end of the in-breath, your head hanging down backward. The out-breath, roll to the left. And the end of the out breath, your head is hanging forward. And the in breath, feel your body expand, and as an extension of expanding movement, your neck and head coming up. Okay, again, out breath, relax your neck, let the gravity pull down your head. Okay, next in breath, move your head to the left, the other way around. In breath. Very slow. And the out breath, right. Okay, in breath. Your head comes up as if like plants, germinate from the ground to the sky. Do you see any difference? World become brighter. Good sign. Okay, another rolling around movement is a shoulder blade. Shoulder blade, not the shoulder, shoulder blade. So in breath. In breath, pull up your shoulder blade, and then you move shoulder blade backward, and then out breath, let the gravity pull down. Okay, let's try. In breath. So this is the maximum tension, right? And then out breath, totally surrender. So first half is your jaw. Second half is nature's jaw. Usually we think this is the exercise, and then after that, no exercise. But point of this exercise is actually the second part. Yoga too, difficult pose. This is not the end. This is the beginning of yoga. So after this, real yoga start. It's an inner work. Okay, another one is nipple. So feel the level of your nipple, and then out breath, move your nipple backward. And then in breath, move your nipple forward. So actually, this is a movement of your spine, upper part of your spine. But instead of focusing on the spine, I would be aware, try to be aware of the nipples. Okay, so out breath, in breath. So be aware of your nipples, and then out breath, backward. So make your back spine kind of round without using the muscle, just in the in breath. Feel the difference in your mood, when you are doing this, and then very different. Okay. So move, breath, in breath, out breath, move your body. Okay, go down, navel button. So, out breath. So this time lumbar, 5 lumbars. The in breath, make arch. But if I say make arch at your lumbar, you tense up here. So I want to avoid that. That's why I'm kind of using the navel button or nipples. Okay, just try once. Out breath, relax your lumbar. The in breath, pull out your navel button. So kind of by exercising like like a look like break dance. For us to be able to do this, our spine should be not like a stick, but rather hanging down chains, so we can move any part of it freely. But because there's a mark in our torso, the nipples, 2 nipples, and then navel button, everybody has it, So easy to tell. And also the location of the nipples and navel button is has special meaning for the movement. Okay. So there's a reason why nipple is not here. Not here, but here. And navel button is not here, but here. There is a reason. So this is a mark given by us, by the nature. Why don't we use those 2 marks, 1 mark here, for our movement? That's my idea. Okay, last one is soften solar plexus. Solar plexus. Do you know where? Plexus. Okay, I have been making mistake. Plexus. Okay, solar plexus. Do you know where it is? It is. So there's a rib cage, bottom line of the rib cage, and then meeting here, and then 3 fingers down. You just touch. You push a little bit, and you feel very peculiar sensations. So this is a very crucial point. Even small kids hit this place, without expectation. Sometimes you faint away. So it's very important. So touch that spot with your middle finger. And then out of breath, you totally relax your torso. And then push this finger in as deep as possible. You have to bend your back. Because if you keep your back arched like this, it's impossible. Right? And then at the end of your breath, just suddenly release your finger. Then feel the in-breath come in by itself. And then breathe in. Okay, once more. Breathe in deeply, as much as possible, and then through your mouth. Then suddenly release your hand. Okay. I have more menus, but I think it takes time, so I skip. So I hope you have a little bit more relaxed and set aside some kind of barriers or shield, so that my voice, my message, I hope, reach not to the head, but to the heart. Okay. So before another preparation, to warming up my tongue, I'd like to share the story of Reverend Shohaku, Okumura, and myself. I'm a very physical person, so this is a photograph. I am walking on the tightrope. It's called slackline. This is my hobby. And I took this big photograph last time I visited Sanshinji. Don't think I'm kind of tapping his head, He's kind of far back. Maybe I can read his mind like, oh, Issho, oh my God. Is this my junior? As he introduced me before my talk, I met Shohaku-san is one of the first anti-G monk I ever met. The winter of 1981, when Shohaku-san was asked to teach Buddhism and Zen to 6 Italian men and women, I visited Antaiji, not for the final stay, but to just check it out. I was recommended to visit Antaiji by Roshi that maybe Antaiji is good for you. but it's a rumor, Antaiji is a great place, so I cannot take responsibility. So you just go yourself and then see with your eyes. And if you like, stay. That was advice. So I just followed his advice, and then I went there. And then I witnessed the tall Japanese monk is teaching Buddhism in English. Wow! And then I just attended, even though I didn't understand what he's talking about. But and also I was surprised to see 6 foreigners staying there, 6 women, 6 men. Wow, interesting place. We, Shohaku and I, belong to the same lineage. Antaiji's Kodo Sawaki and Kosho Uchiyama lineage of the Japanese Soto Zen Buddhism. His Dharma brother is my teacher, so he's my uncle, right? In the Dharma. So Uncle Shohaku. Somehow I have been following his back as his, someone used pioneer. Yeah, literally he's pioneer, cultivating the uncultivated field, working very hard. I didn't intend to follow him, but so far it looked like I'm following stalker. So this chart is kind of telling the first he practiced Antaiji right after he graduated from Komazawa University. So another common point is we never work for company. We never use a tie. I don't know how to tie. I quit the graduate school, right? So we never worked job hunting. We never did job hunting. So anyway, he practiced Antaiji. This Antaiji is in Kyoto. And then after that, Antaiji moved to the deep in mountain, Hyogo prefecture. I show you the Antaiji, that new Antaiji later. I entered an Antaiji. Then when Antaiji moved from Kyoto to the current location, Shohaku-san was dispatched to Massachusetts to establish Pioneer Valley Zendo. And then I went there after he came back to Japan. So again, I followed his footsteps. Then as also he explained, when he wanted to quit the director position of the Soto Zen International Center, I was asked to be a second director. Of course, I was reluctant. I was told, this was my policy: don't take any position with the title director. But due to my gratitude and also kind of pressure from the seniority, and also his kind of serious, please, Issho. So I couldn't help but say, okay. So that's why I'm here. Okay, so so this is Kodo Sawaki, Roshi. We never met him, but very much influenced by his writings or his way of living. He was nicknamed as Homeless Kodo. He didn't have any, he did not own any temples. He just traveled around many temples in Japan to have a lecture, session, and then inspire people to sit zazen. And one of those inspired people was Uchiyama Roshi. Uchiyama Roshi, another common point is Shohaku-san and I were not born as the son of the temple priest. We have nothing to do with temple. And Uchiyama Roshi too. This is Uchiyama Roshi. He served tea always like this. Many times I was served tea. Issho-san, more tea, more tea. Uchiyama Roshi. And this Uchiyama Roshi is Shohaku-san's master, teacher. And I'm also very much inspired by his writings. I met him many times. It was one of the luckiest fortune, I think, I could meet Uchiyama Roshi. While he was alive. Very nice picture, Kodo Sawaki and Kosho Uchiyama at Antaiji in Kyoto. Okay, this is new Antaiji in Hyogo Prefecture. This is Antaiji Antaiji where I entered to practice. Deep in the mountain, lots of snow. And then this is a photograph of Pioneer Valley Zendo in Massachusetts. Shohaku-san is one of the 3 Antaiji monks who established this small Zendo in the woods, summer and winter. So this is a small group, but very dedicated people. And some of them has been practicing since Shohaku-san was there. So he could recognize some of them old friends there. So growing vegetables and then eating lunch, udon, tempura udon, kind of things. And then some picture of Soto International Center in San Francisco. So this is the entrance. It's a basement of the Japanese American Zen temple. No windows. He didn't tell me. No information. So this is the office. And as a director, I have been enjoying visiting many Zen centers or Zen group worldwide. So this is, I think, Monterey, Zen group in Monterey. So this is, I think, Brazil, during session, Rohatsu session, I think. I experienced the Rohatsu session for the first time with sweat. Sweating Rohatsu session. This is Vermont. This is the Sokoji temple in San Francisco. Sometimes at Sokoji we have the school kids, like as a field trip. So I was asked to explain, about Zazen. So usually I use those skeleton models. Even the bone, this skeleton can sit in a good balance. You should be able to sit. No muscle. Even this skeleton model has no muscle. It can sit nicely. So why can't you do this? So that's my kind of catchphrase. Sometimes this is a temple, Japanese American Zen temple in Los Angeles. So this is a kind of symposium, future of American Zen kind of thing. So this is a workshop at the San Francisco Zen Center. As you did, this kind of thing, I'm letting people do very funny exercise. This is a kind of learning, how supple our spine is. Some people say, is this related to Zazen? I think this is a Hokyoji Hokyoji temple. So I'm kind of showing the pelvis models. It's caused me some trouble to go through the security. I want to stop the sir. You might have some body part. What is that? So I have to show. Are you a medical doctor? No, Buddhist. So this is the Mexico City group in Mexico City. Okay, so maybe my tongue get warm up. So move to my point. So the Soto Zen Buddhism, we have been following this particular tradition founded by Dogen. The characteristic of the Soto Zen tradition, Soto Zen teaching, is so much emphasis on Zazen practice. And sometimes it's called shikantaza to differentiate other type of meditation or sitting practice, because all Buddhist traditions sit like the same way. So some people might have a misconception that they are doing the same thing, but actually each tradition has a different understanding about the sitting, significant meaning or significance of sitting, and also the content of sitting varies depending on the traditions. So to differentiate the Soto Zen type of sitting practice from other type of sitting practice, we call it shikantaza in Japanese, which literally means just sitting. You are familiar with this term. So I quote several sentences from Dogen's writing with Shohaku-san's translation to honor his work. This is a quotation from Eihei Koroku, Dogen's extensive record. Wrong spell. But anyway. So there's a sentence like this: the true Dharma, correctly transmitted by Buddhas and ancestors, is simply just sitting. Very straightforward statement. A little bit long. All Buddha Tathagatas together have been simply transmitting wondrous Dharma and actualizing Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, the supreme awakening, for which there is unsurpassed, unfabricated, wondrous method. This wondrous Dharma, which has been transmitted only from Buddha to Buddha without deviation, has as its criterion Jiju Zammai, Japanese, which means samadhi of self-receiving or accepting its function. Well, this is Shohaku-san's translation. This is very useful translation for my talk today. Then it continues, for disporting oneself freely in this samadhi, practicing zazen in an upright posture is a true gate. Although this dharma is abundantly inherent in each person, it is not manifested without practice, it is not attained without realization. The Shobogenzo Bendowa, the talk on wholehearted practice of the way. This is also Shohaku-san's translation. But around Zazen, there's lots of misunderstanding, not only in the West, but also in Japan too. Because Zazen is very counterintuitive, or is very different from what our common sense can understand. So because of this gap between the reality of Zazen and our common sense, or our ordinary framework of thinking, or ordinary logic, between this, the space between this to reality of Zazen and then common sense, lots of misunderstanding, prejudice, preoccupations, confusion happen. And I pick up 4 major misunderstandings of Zazen. First, Zazen is, many people think, Zazen is a means to attain enlightenment, or whatever your understanding or interpretation about enlightenment. But something wonderful, which make me much better, or perfect, or Superman, or whatever you imagine. So Zazen is a means to attain something you don't have right now. But according to Dogen, this is the fundamental misunderstanding. So Zazen is a continuous effort without seeking for gain or attainment. So most people think, so why we have to work so hard? San Francisco Zen Center's T-shirts, Bodhisattva is working with a whore at maybe this is the green gouge, organic vegetable garden. Behind this, hard work without no effort, without any result or something like that. This kind of message there. Now I'm often stopped by a stranger, sir, what does it mean? Hard work without any gain. Doesn't make sense to me. I think I always say to this kind of person, you're right. Everybody feels that way. That's why we are practicing it. More confusion. He let me go. So that's a first misunderstanding I often see among the people. The second is that Zazen is something mental work. Okay, body. Okay, I'm sitting with body. So okay. Then what should I do next with my mind? Most of us think that way. Okay, give me the instruction how to do with my mind. No instruction. In Zazen, no instruction. So Zazen is a correct upright sitting posture with whole body mind as one. Body sit and mind sit. Body mind sit. Very difficult. Most of the meditation has something to do with mind. Focusing on some peculiar sensations, or visualizing some images, or repeating some mantra or dharani, the magical word in the mind. There is something, some instruction there. But in Zazen, there's no instruction. Number 3, Zazen is somehow self-absorption. People understand. You are going delve into the deep inner world. Okay. So for that purpose, we should shut down the input from outside. That's why we close our eyes and then keep the environment quiet. And then if there's some noises, so Mike mentioned that the sitting around the soccer game or it's nonsense, totally nonsense. But for Zazen practice, that's very, very good environment. In a sense. So Zazen is opposite to this kind of shutting down, just focus on what's going on inside myself. Rather, open to and connect with all things around us in the world. What's going on outside, what's going on inside. So it's not an enclosure, shutting down, rather open up. The last one is, we must not move, body must not move, mind must not move. So motionlessness is emphasized in body and mind. As if you're dead Buddha statue or something like that. That's not the idea for Zazen. Zazen should be very alive and very dynamic. So those 4 major misunderstandings, I should flip them around. But this kind of very unique, strange, counterintuitive Zazen was not started by Dogen. This is Dogen's understanding what Buddha did under the Bodhi tree. So the genesis, origin of Zazen, this kind of Zazen, is a Buddha sitting under the tree. So let's, so we trace back the history or genealogy of Shikantaza. The first sitting is the Buddha's first sitting under a tree. I just copied from the famous cartoon by the famous Japanese animator Osamu Tezuka without permission. because I was looking for the picture Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree. Many of them very too much decorative, too much color, too much kind of a. Well, this is very simple, so I borrowed it. So I think it's very helpful for us to figure out, you know, this is guesswork, totally guesswork. Nobody knows what he really did. So it's based on my understanding of Buddhism and also experience of sitting and so on. It's totally my guesswork. I'm totally wrong. But let me share how I think about Buddha's first sitting under a tree. So it's very helpful for us to understand what kind of process he followed up to the moment he sat down under a tree. So there's a very useful resources for this purpose, which is Mahasacchaka Sutta, the Pali text, Majjhima Nikaya, number 36. Not so long. I really recommend you to find some English translation of this sutta. He kind of reflect his practice, you know, throughout up to the. Someone asks question about the Dharma, and then Buddha recalling his experience when he was young. So it's very helpful. As most of you know, the Buddha did not sit under the Bodhi tree after he left the palace. Immediately after he left the palace, there are some stages. So let's just quickly see the brief story about the Buddha. First, he started life in the palace. He was enjoying the very secluded and then life of security and luxury. He could gain whatever he wanted immediately. Everybody wants to live this way, right? Big house, big car, beautiful ladies, nice, delicious food, and so on. But universe conspired to show him another aspect of the life. It is called four sights. So when young Siddhartha went out for watching the city, he witnessed four sights. First three is very negative impact on him. He witnessed I forget the order, but sick person, old person, and dead person. And he was very upset. He never seen such a thing. And then each time he asked his chariot, what is this? And the chariot answered, this is sick person. Wow. Is this going to happen to me? Sorry, yes, everybody has to experience this that way. And then fourth occasion, he witnessed some spiritual seeker or wanderers. That's a little bit of hope. But anyway, he could not enjoy his life in the palace anymore. Some legend describe this state as a young lion whose heart is pierced with poison arrow. So with this arrow, he cannot enjoy food like before. He cannot enjoy beautiful dance, music anymore. He has to do with this arrow. So he left the palace. It is called Great Renunciation. So in the Mahasacchaka Sutta, this is his word. When I was still young, black-haired, endowed with the blessing with youth in the first stage of life, having shaved off my hair and beard. There's no beard here. But he said so. Though my parents wished otherwise, and were grieving with tears on their faces, I put on the okara robe and went forth from the home life into homelessness. This is his way of describing this big shift. So maybe in his life, this is a big shift, first big shift. And he shifted from the life with security and luxury into the life of the practitioner. So first, he did not enter into the forest or deep in the mountain. He went to the big city to practice the method available those days and try to learn those methods under very famous teachers, gurus. First, he tried with Alara Kalama. I don't know how much he paid. I don't know the system those days. But anyway, he became a disciple of this famous, maybe popular meditation teacher. And he quickly attained the goal this Alara Kalama taught. And then this is another quotation from the Mahasachaka Sutta. Alara Kalama treated him a co-teacher, but he said he refused it. This Dhamma leads not to disenchantment, to dispassion, to cessation, to stilling, to direct knowledge, to awakening, nor to unabiding. But those are kind of the terminology to point out the way of being Buddha wanted to attain. But he could not get it under the Alara Kalama. So he dissatisfied with that Dhamma. He left it. And then he go to the another meditation teacher, Uttaraka Ramaputta. But I skipped that person, sorry. The same thing happened. So next to this, he changed the approach to self-mortification. So this is a famous, suffering Buddha with a severe self-mortification. And its severeness, Buddha was somehow proud of it. Before, past, present, and the future, any practitioner of self-mortification would never endure the pain he experienced. Kind of try to be proud of what he did. So he did it very thoroughly, but this was not satisfied him either. So he has to give up. Giving up all available methods. Okay? So this is a big failure. He get into the impasse, deadlock. So in front of him, only two choices. Give up. One is give up his spiritual search or inquiry. Second choice was to try his own third way. So he chose second choice. And then there was some hint at this moment. This is very important. When he was he totally failed to attain his goal by applying two-measure spiritual method in India those days, meditation practice and self-mortification. He has some kind of recalled his own childhood episode. I recall once when my father, the Shakyan, was working, as I was sitting in the cool shade of a rose apple tree, then quite secluded from sensuality, secluded from unskillful mental qualities, I entered and remained in the first jhana, rapture and pleasure born from seclusion, accompanied by direct thoughts and evaluation. Could that be the path to awakening? This is very interesting episode to me. So with this hint and also a little bit hope, he received the food from Sujata, the village girl Sujata, and cleansing his body in the river. This is another total shift in his practice. And then after this, finally, we got here, sitting under a tree. Happened. So here is the main part of my talk. What is revolutionary in the Buddha's sitting under a tree? I use the word revolutionary because if he was satisfied with what he practiced under the meditation teacher or a self-mortification, the Buddhism would never be born fleshly, newly in the history of human beings. So when he sat under the Bodhi tree, something very new, very revolutionary happened. So I use quantum leap. So some shift in quality of approaching to the life. But quantum leap means from here to there. So what was this quantum leap from what to what? Of course, there's many interpretation, many answers to this question. So this is my answer. One of the quantum leap was this: going beyond method or technique. He tried technique, methods, already established, and then maybe there is a teacher or coach for this method, and also very well prescribed, described, like a manual-like handbook for knowledge, instructions, set of instructions, what to do. But as far as we receive the method or technique, we inevitably have this structure, subject, I, and then there's an object, my mind or my body, and then what I do is I try to control my body or mind or all together, following the instructions. So I have been looking for a good keyword to describe this from what to what. And I came across the Greek word techne and poiesis. Are you familiar with this word? No. Techne. Techne is etymology of technology or technique. It implies we human beings, by applying means, very tricky means, very stimulating means to pull out something is hidden in the nature. So technology, you can tell, maybe nuclear power is very typical example of this techne type approach. We human beings using some tricks and then stimulating the atoms, pull out the energy hidden in the nucleus. The purpose of this technique is for ourselves. We utilize those energy for ourselves. And poiesis is very different. Poiesis is the nature's function to offer us which is hidden in the nature abundantly. This is spontaneous offering or gift from the nature to us. Like a flower blooms, flower is offering to us. So we encounter with this something very abundant in nature as a gift. We receive it without any effort. What we should do is receive with gratitude. Poiesis is the etymology of poem. poem. Poem is not your brain is kind of squeaking out some idea. Rather, somehow you receive some idea or message, and then you, through you, poem comes out. So Buddha's shift from the, to me, the tekune is good word to describe what Buddha did before he sat under the Bodhi tree. And then sitting under the tree is a poiesis. Another good term, kind of contrasting term, is goi and ui. Goi is, both are Japanese words. Often we see this pair word in Dogen's writing. Goi is a forceful action, effortful action. Okay. So you make a lot of effort to bring about something you want to have. And ui is opposite. It's a spontaneous action. The coughing, yawning. We have most of our life consists of those two combination of two type of actions: forceful action and then ui action, spontaneous action. Another term. This is also we can find this term in Dogen's writing: shuzen and zazen. Shuzen is step-by-step practice following meditation technique to achieve some state of the mind. So for me, those three sets of the contrasting word might be helpful for us to understand about the nature of quantum leap. The another way of describing this shift is middle way. His sitting under a tree was a kind of middle way between two extremes, A and B. Middle way is very important concept in Buddhism. It is used in many different contexts. Of course, this is my own usage of this middle way in this context. What is two extremes is, one, A is a life of fundamental ignorance, life of no awareness. Just you live, you are alive, but like autopilot mode. You just keep repeating the same habit pattern again and again. So this is maybe a good description of Buddha's life in the palace. So with the help of his experience of four sides, he realized this life is not good. So he has to leave this lifestyle behind and then start a new life. Then he moved to B, another extreme. Life of conscious control by strictly following methods, whatever it is. So following the method, whatever, I think you learn some method of any method. You can experience success or failure. You are concerned about success or failure in following the method. And then when you are success, wow. Failure, ups and downs. And here, as far as its method, there is a duality of means and end. Because once you attain the end, you don't have to do that method. You can discard, throw away those methods. Because it's means. And then your concern is end, to attain the end, goal, purpose. So until you attain the goal, there's no peace there. Because you're hurrying, you're in haste to reach the goal as soon as possible by all means. So no peace, no rest. And it's very artificial. And no naturalness there. I use those very strong words to describe the extreme. I want to show it as very extreme way. So Buddha sitting under a tree is the middle way, not A plus B. It's a new way of living, or a new way of life. So to explain those two different extreme way of being or living, I use the example of the breathing. So as for breathing, no awareness of breathing means you just breathe unconsciously. You are doing breathing, but very unconsciously. There's no awareness there. And with this way, if I say, please breathe naturally, you say, okay, I'm breathing naturally. But I don't call it naturally, because from the viewpoint of the person who recovered the naturalness of breathing, our natural breathing is not natural. Very unnatural, shallow, irregular, and so on. Even though we cannot imagine what is a natural breathing besides my natural breathing. So it's unconscious breathing. So I call it normal breathing, but I don't call it natural breathing. Maybe we are breathing normally, but not naturally. So because of this unconsciousness, no awareness, very unlikely that our breathing get improved. Of course, we will not die immediately due to this unconscious, unnatural breathing, but we are experiencing the symptom, very subtle symptom of this unnatural breathing. It is accumulating. That's why in many traditions, spiritual traditions, people invented special breathing method, breathing exercise to enhance, improve, or bring our unnatural breathing into a natural breathing. So B, as for the breathing, this is a conscious but totally controlled unnatural breath by man-made breathing technique. So someone tells me that my breathing is unnatural, so I have to improve my breathing. And this person said, I have a good technique to improve your breath, to make your breathing more natural. Okay, let me teach. And he showed me what to do. Okay, posture or special breathing like this, And then he described, how the natural breathing should be. So that became my goal. And then my means is method he teaches me. And then I start controlling my breath, so that my breathing getting closer to what he described as natural breathing. Maybe I can attain it, but that does not mean my breathing becomes natural. Very unnatural. So third way, the middle way between A and B is this: awareness with no control. We are deeply aware of what's happening, but without sense of any control. So in other words, intimate communication between awareness and the working of body-mind, which is the nature. Our breathing, this event or phenomena called breathing, is maintained by very complicated and subtle workings of body-mind. Our consciousness can reach only a tiny part of it. So the area we can control breathing is very, very limited. So as far as my perspective of breathing is limited, within this area, I never be able to get the whole picture of the breathing. So consciously following the method does not guide us to the depth of the breathing. So for breathing, I can say being deeply and finely aware of natural process of breathing without trying to artificially control it. Then what's happened is kind of spiral improvement of the breath managed by innate self-regulatory mechanism. The body-mind, what is managing the breathing, receive the feedback information through my awareness. They use that information as a clue to improve my breathing. So it's not me working, but the total whole mechanism of breathing is working. And then with this awareness of natural breathing is not flat, it's spirally getting improved by itself. How to get into this process is our practice. Another aspect of this shift is the shift in the role of body-mind. First to practice, the body and mind was the object of control or change. He tried to change mind, he tried to change the body. So in that sense, body and mind were instrument and means, and something to be restricted, forced, controlled. But he shifted from this way to the sitting under the Bodhi tree. The body-mind is not the object of control, but object of study or object of exploration or observation. And it's play a central role, central player, not the object to be controlled. And it's changed from something to be controlled or restricted to something to be freed. To support my interpretation, let me quote very interesting words from Dogen. From Shobogenzo Shoji, Birth and Death. Just letting go of and forgetting the body and mind, casting them into the house of Buddha, being activated by the Buddha, when we go along in accord with this, then without applying effort, or expanding the mind, we part from birth and death and become Buddha. Or, this is another Shoaku-san's translation. The way is originally perfect and all-pervaded. How could it be contingent on practice and realization? The true vehicle is self-sufficient. What need is there special effort? Indeed, the whole body is free from dust. Who could believe in the means to brush it clean? It is never apart from this very place. What is the use of traveling around to practice? It sounds like negating the necessity of the practice. But this is the starting point of Zazen practice. After this, he said, Dogen said, and yet. Another word, Zazen I speak of is not meditation practice. That is not meditation practice. This is Shuzen, Shoaku-san's translation of Shuzen. It is simply the Dharma gate of joyful ease. Joyful ease. So Zazen should be a gate of joyful ease from the beginning, not after 10 years, 20 years, practice enduring pain, discomfort, and so on. Because there's no guarantee you can have 10 years later. Right? as far as you are following Buddha's teaching of impermanence, your practice should contain this quality from the beginning, even tiny bit. So this is the example of sitting as a Dharma gate of joyful ease. 11-month-old baby. When you are this time, you could sit this way. Where is it? The mechanism or ability you have at this time of your life. Where? You still have it. Somewhere. But I think this baby will also lose that ability. Maybe once he starts standing up and walking around, and then using the word me, me, me. I, my, me. So our practice is how to get back to this quality as adult. He does not have any awareness about this kind of matter. So that's why he loses. So we should find the pathway to sit like a baby. Not as a baby, like a baby. So for the shortage of time, I just quickly talk about. So the agent, what is the agent of the practice? Goi or tekune, the I is the agent. But poiesis or uni, it, I cannot tell what is it. So I use the word capital T, capital I and T, it. Posture, for example, I stretch my back. I stretch my back. Or my back get lengthened. Or it lengthen the back. I turn my neck. Or it turns my neck. Looks very similar, but your experience might be very different. Landscape also different. Process is very different. So I can say same thing, posture, breath, mind too. This it, there are many names in Buddhism. House of Buddha, in the last quotation, the Buddha, the way, the self, Buddha nature, prajna, there are many, many terms. So Buddha's big shift is this. I one-sidedly control it. Two, it spontaneously and autonomously regulates while I is humbly receiving its outcomes. That's Jiju Samadhi. If I borrow the grammatical term, transitively, I do something, or intransitively, it does. Intentional push or spontaneous push. Bowel movement. Bowel movement. Often I witness the mother telling baby, push, push. I think it's ruining. She's ruining, maybe out of goodwill, but ruining the naturalness of the bowel movement. From the beginning of our life, we are imprinted that, to have it, we have to have a lot of work. But this is preventing us from having the natural bowel movement. We see the result, when you move to the and result is not so good. Color, size, shape, flavor, not so good. When it comes out as a natural push, spontaneous push, without so much effort, it's a big, nice shape, like a snake. And shining, I think, right? I think everybody has this experience. But childbirth also, I don't know here, but in Japan, lots of melodrama, the wife is, sweating and then encouraged by doctor, nurses, work. It is called labor, right? But actually it's not. Of course, I'm man. Every time I talk about, use this example, my wife laugh, But I studied infant psychology, and I came across this great book, Birth Without Violence. French pedestrian, I think. Pedestrian? Yeah, baby doctor kind of thing. Yeah. Birth Without Violence. Bodhi knows how to get the baby out. But our job is not to interfere with our intentional, because now childbirth is not so natural. The doctors, Saturday I have to do golf, so make it later by some, injection or something like that. It's often happen practice in Japan. But if you follow the spontaneous push, the childbirth should be much easier, because we are designed that way. Or abdominal breathing and sleep. So another one, maybe I skip this one, but another radical shift is the attitude toward the experiences, particularly sensations. Well, I skip this one. Well, we can use our sensory organs without tensing up them so much. The eye above, upside is, we try to see it more clear. It's a kind of greedy eyes. I want to see more, right? Tense up. But we can use our sensory organ more relaxed way. Receiving, it's already here. I'm satisfied with what I am seeing right now. Then I can relax my eyes. Same thing can be said to the ears. Once your eyes get tense up, your ears tense up, your whole body tense up, your mind get tense up, and it's choke you. It's everything interrelated. So we should have eyes appropriate for zazen. So another metaphor is magical eye. If you try to find the hidden pictures by looking, very hard, you never able to see the hidden three-dimensional pictures. You have to relax your eyes. It's called magical eyes. So in Zazen, we all use all 6 sensory functions as magic eyes, magic ears, magic nose, magic tongue, magic body, magic mind. This is a shift. Balancing all sensory functions, inner perception, outer perceptions. Not so much focus on inner, not so much on outer. It's a balancing between inner and outer. So we can have a quality of being very much centered and connected. So conclusion, to study the Buddha way is to study the self, very famous Dogen's statement, Genjo Koan. But according to Buddhism, we lose the sight of the self and then fall into the illusion of ego. We confuse self with ego and then act against the self and tormented by ego. So our job to do in this life, to enjoy this life, is to return to self from the ego and rest in peace. Unless we return to the self, the ego never be able to get in peace. That's the nature of ego. So then here, the significance or importance of Zazen. Zazen is literally self is selfing by itself for itself. Self is selfing by itself for itself. So that's a Jiju Zanbai, samadhi of short translation. Right? So it's Zazen. So I should stop here. I think my mission and Shohaku-san's mission in this lifetime, this time, is a universal recommendation of Zazen. We are kind of salesman of Zazen. So my hope is let us try to embody the radical shift the Buddha made under a tree 2,500 years ago in India. At this place, every time we sit Zazen or wherever we are, that's the key. From ego to self, or goi to uni, tekune to poiesis. You can name, you can call it whatever you want, but that kind of shift. Thank you for your attention. Hope to see you again. Take care. So maybe time for question answer, comments, criticism, challenge. So feel free to do whatever you want. And also, I forget to tell the I should thank everybody who worked to make this event possible today. And Sanshin-Zen-Community Sangha, and also this center, Mongolian, Tibetan Mongolian Buddhist Culture Center. Thank you very much for allowing us to use a nice space. I'm very happy to be here. Okay, question?
This question came to my mind just now. I'm just curious about this
Okay.
talk that like Buddhism is centered came out of Buddha's awakening, and over the years there have been many masters who have had a awakening. So I'm wondering, was it can be considered that Buddha's awakening was qualitatively different from other
Qualitative?
Distinct from other people's awakening, or was it his interpretation and his usage which made his created a path for the Buddha?
She was asking about the Buddha's awakening. Is it different from other type of awakening?
Others awakening.
Do you know other type of awakening?
I don't know. I'm just curious.
Yeah, at least he was awakened, based on my talk today, awakened from the human-centered approach to life to, I don't know what centered, it-centered way of life, I think. Because we are designed to, our brain or our whole organism is designed or inevitably create the illusion of ego. I don't know why, but maybe it's called original sin or fundamental ignorance. Each spiritual tradition name it in a very different way, maybe different mythology. But I think it's pointed out the same thing. We separate ourselves from the flow of this universe. And then how to go beyond this separation? We are not separated, but we believe it's separated. That's why we act against the self and tormented by this ego. Right? Lots of problem is emerging out of this deep sense of separation. So Buddha's awakening is we don't have to suffer that way. Because originally we never separated it. So Buddha's awakening to it is just not so. His awakening did not create something new, but he just rediscovered who we dearly are, and then he showed us how to. Not only talking about it, but he also showed us the practice to realize, or to re-embody that reality in our daily life. So, great thing about Buddhism is not just the becoming the sage, and particularly this is the reason why I like Zen tradition, is emphasizing go back to the ordinary life to express or manifest this oneness with everything, in your act, speech, and thoughts. Moment by moment, case by case in your daily life. So I think we should be more busy. We should be busier in doing it. It's a kind of our homework. Okay. Yes.
This is a question about your distinction between techne and poiesis. Are things like art and poetry and even the koan, would you classify them as techne because their purpose is to awaken in the viewer or the reader something that is in their nature but they're not aware of it?
I think as far as the art or koan, whatever it is used, being used as a techne, I think that techne does not guide you or take you to the goal. I think somehow you should give up like a Buddha did. Stop being techne and then transform into poiesis is necessary. That's why even many koan stories, awakening happened not in the middle of doing some or applying some method, very ordinary settings, very unexpected way, right? So when they forget about that, something happened. Yeah. So it's I think I use our gift. We feel like it's a gift, not my achievement. So as far as you have a sense, okay, I got it, or this is my achievement, I think that's still immature in terms of the depth of the poiesis, I think. It should be, should is not good. We naturally feel it's a gift. I'm not deserve it. I don't deserve it, but somehow I was given, kind of things. Yeah. So that's why there's some spiritual or religious flavor there. Technique is, I think, as a technology, it's a kind of a very logical, rational, we can make a forecast or a plan. We can plan it. Maybe with this, maybe in 3 years you can get enlightened. You cannot say that. It just happened. But of course, there is a job we have to work hard. But it's not 100% my achievement, even though there is a thing I have to do within this project. Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah, good question. Anyone? Yes.
So, in Buddhism, in all forms, I feel there is an object of meditation, whether it's in Vipassana, it's the breath, or in Vishuddhimagga, any of the 40 Kyudesas, or anything like that. And I find Zen, they say, Zazen, there is no object. But I find, in practicing it, the core is maintaining the posture. So I am confused as to how the posture isn't the object of meditation in Zazen.
Okay. Now, as I said, if you take posture as an object of meditation, you are applying some method, technique, the technique. As I said, the posture is done by it, not me. So I just create the conditions, which is maybe one of those very important conditions is the allowance. Allowance means I'm totally relaxed. I trust the workings of my body and mind. And then, right, psychologically I trust. Most of us think, don't believe, without effort I can sit upright. That's why I'm showing the baby sitting. No effort, no sense of effort. But something's very working, nicely. That's why he could sit that way in a gravitational field. Something is working, but not so much kind of things. Right? So tekune, maybe in narrow sense, tekune is always I object, and then between I subject and object there is some controlled type approach to it. So with this approach, strictly speaking, we cannot sit upright with a correct posture. I cannot call it a correct posture. As far as you have to do some excessive effort to maintain it. That's why I quote, without expending the mind, applying the effort or expending the mind. So that's a criteria. Right? Then casting all your body and mind into the house of the Buddha, everything is done by the Buddha. Right? This is not fantasy. This is the orientation or direction or element we have to have in our practice, particularly in Zazen. I can see same quality in all kind of performing art too, or even martial arts. I can find the same kind of statement by the